What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. I want to start off by talking about Morgan Stanley and what they recently said about Lucid. And over and above that, we got our 2023 EPA approvals, and I want to talk what that means for us as investors. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. With that, let's get right to it. So when it comes down to Morgan Stanley, we've always had a very interesting relationship for the longest time. And when I say interesting, it's really messed up. So from the get-go, they give a price target around $16, very similar and close to the PIPE investors, which got in at 15. So oddly enough, from the get-go, they were very bearish on Lucid for no real fundamental reason. Just clearly, they were very big fans of Tesla, and they saw it as probably a little bit more competition. But aside from that, they lowered it from there down to 12 and then reiterated it many times. Even as of right now, the last time was October the 13th. But oddly enough, in this time when they did kind of reiterate that $12 price target, they said it is because of broader market conditions, nothing fundamentally to do with Lucid. So that could be seen as a very positive sign. They do talk as well on the PIF and how that is very beneficial for Lucid, especially part of that 2030 vision. So like I said, it's had a very interesting relationship with Lucid behind the scenes. But oddly enough, I like to see behind the scenes, like I just mentioned, what exactly institutions are doing. So based on the latest round of 13Fs, this is where you can see what institutions are really truly doing behind the scenes. And when it comes down to Morgan Stanley more specifically, based on, I believe it came out on October the 27th, these are all the 13Fs. So disclosures to the SEC as far as holdings. So let's scroll down and see what Morgan Stanley did. So right here, October the 27th, they increased their position 48.77% in Q3. So they have 3.3 million shares of Lucid. So now I think this is the third back-to-back quarter that they give us $12 price targets, but behind the scenes, they go and double their position. So really messed up stuff going on here. So let me know your thoughts on that. I absolutely find that so much comical, as much so as Jim Cramer saying that Lucid isn't a buy. There's just so many people out there that definitely do not understand the fundamentals of what actually Lucid is trying to achieve. And I think that's one of the biggest negatives of the broader market right now, is just people are very narrow-minded. Because when it comes down to Lucid, as I always say in a lot of videos, you should be thinking about 2025. There's absolutely no reason to sell Lucid at this stage in the game when they are just starting to ramp up right now. They are very early in their production. They're still early as far as a infancy for their whole company. And in reality, just people, like I said, just think too short term, whereas you should be thinking longer term with Lucid. So that's my own 2 cents. But keep in mind though, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence at the end of the day. But when it comes down to Lucid, as far as getting EPA approval, that is always a very positive sign. And latest news, Lucid did get 2023 EPA approval on all of their Air models. So definitely that is a very good thing. Keep in mind, they do have a lot of Air models, different variations of that, and several of them got 2023 as far as approval. So that goes to show that they can now sell them officially, the 2023 models, and that is a very big deal. And in reality, it looks like it got approval within 2 days. So it did submit approval for that on the September 27th, got approved on September the 9th. And although I'm sure a lot of us already knew that this was going to be expected, there's no real fundamental reason for them to say no. Just it's very good to see behind the scenes that it does hit all the appropriate check marks. So let me know your thoughts on that. But outside of that, we do have a very interesting week ahead of us. So on Wednesday, November the 2nd, we have our, as far as interest rate decision. Clearly, you can tell it right here. The forecast is already going to be 75 basis points. In reality, as I already mentioned in a couple other videos, a lot of which they do follow Canada's role. So Canada typically is 2 weeks ahead of the States. I know Canada is completely a small country in comparison, but there's a very similar circumstance among the two. So Canada was forecasted to do the 75 basis points, but they did reduce it only down to 50. In reality, if that is what happens in this scenario as well, anticipate a very broad market rally. So let me know your thoughts on that. Clearly, I think given the circumstances, the Feds have really had a very good stance. But historically, aside from, doesn't matter if they do the 75, 50, or 100, whatever it is, whatever the interest rate they do decide, the guidance is what typically a lot of people care about. This is where it can go either way. Historically, like I just said, it tends to trend up because Powell does like to say and give a little bit more of a calming in the market. So definitely could go either way, but I am always a little bit more optimistic when it comes down to the rate decisions. And I'm always a very strong believer in, as soon as they start talking about 75 basis points months ago, that already instantly gets factored into the stock price. So I think that right now 75 basis points is already factored in. So if it is 50, for instance, it could give us a very nice rebound in the broader market. And so when it comes to, like I said, the guidance, that's also going to be that little X factor depending on what is said from that. But big money continues to buy behind the scenes. As you can tell, this is all the transactions just from Friday on the dark pool, and more so on the secondary market as well. More institutions have been really buying. So I do anticipate a little bit more of a rally leading into our upcoming earnings, which is on November the 8th. So make sure you do subscribe because I'm going to be live streaming that. But a lot of positive things coming down the pipeline. But I do want to just show you one additional thing, and that is the technicals. Things are looking very optimistic. So in reality, looking on the actual technicals, we do have that 50-day moving average right now, which is at around $14.75. If we can break over that, we will have more so that other resistance, the central boiling band. So we do have a pretty heavy resistance above us. But this is where, hypothetically, if we can get over those, then it's going to be 1650 easily. So definitely a lot of short-term kind of pain that we do have to get over. But once we do, we are free to kind of roam as high as we technically want, all the way up to around $20. So 16 to 20 could and is very realistic given the circumstances, depending on what is said during their Q3 earnings and also the Feds. There's a lot of different moving parts all at once, as I've been saying. And unfortunately, that's kind of been the case for the longest time. But in addition to that, as far as looking here, momentum indicator, number of retail investors have been going up. So definitely a very positive sign with that regard as well. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. And if you've been buying, selling, holding, whatever it might be, give yourself a shout out in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. If you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.